Welcome to the video on how to plan, measure and report sustainability, including your environmental, social, governance, progress and impacts, and how to do this credibly. Today we're going to share with you about 8 good practice features to use. So before we get started, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Dr. Kate Averill and I live in New Zealand, and I'm passionate about really having people be able to do this credibly and have an impact and really have it make a difference for them and their organisation and their customers and their stakeholders. So thank you for watching this video. So first of all, I'd like to talk about, so what is sustainability? And I think what stands out for me is about intergenerational, that you have enough to meet the needs of the present, but it doesn't affect future generations to meet their own needs. Now, unfortunately, it's really become apparent that how we've been going globally and locally is not sustainable. We've got degradation of the environment, we've got climate change with more moisture and rainfall and floods, storms, and we've got inequalities with some countries being affected more than others and some different regions. So it's part of this is time to really start to look at how can we transform what we're doing. Do we need to regenerate, plant trees, look after the environment more, address inequalities? Now, there's a lot of, I think, gloom and struggle, but actually part of this in this video is really to work out what is important, why is important, and how can different people and organisations contribute. And good practice, how are you going to do this in a way that is credible and that you can make a difference, transform what we're doing. So the first good practice feature is knowing where you are now. As an organisation, where are you for sustainability? What are your environment, social and governance goals? How does it align with values? What's really important to your business, your organisation? What do stakeholders think? What impacts are you working towards? Can you share this proactively, planning and how you're measuring and reporting? So as part of knowing where you are now, what is it that your stakeholders of your business organisation, what's important to them? And, looking at the economy, do you keep growing? Sustainable use of resources? What's important to your organisation environmentally, socially and governance? I really like the movement that is taking these different groups and then looking at how they work together, but it actually is a way of getting started and evolving, looking at different aspects without being overwhelmed. So you can do this in your planning and your measuring and your reporting. Now, there's quite a bit of jargon in this, and part of words like materiality is really what is important to your business internally as making it run, but also the impact externally it has on the environment and on people. And what are the risks? How are you creating value? And then part of that is thinking, okay, Are we going to keep going? What changes do we need to make? What actions can we take? And this might involve behaviour change. Do people buy something different? Do they use different products? Packaging might need to change. And what is the carbon footprint? What does it take in terms of carbon to make your product? And part of this is the organisation is, are you heading towards zero as an organisation? Offsetting was once acceptable, but now it's really that customers want to see that you're looking at carbon zero and addressing inequalities. Do you have data to support this? Both numbers, quantitative, and qualitative, which is asking people their views, their opinions, whether it's working or making a difference. And then assessing your progress and reporting it with the data. Now, this takes time to go from planning to being able to measure your key things, even knowing 5 key things, and then setting some targets and then reporting against it. It's not going to happen within a month, but within a couple of months, 3 months, you can make some progress and then be looking at 6 monthly from there and evolving, becoming a sustainability focused organisation. This involves some knowledge, getting more capability in sustainability, knowing more, and then actioning. So this is what I'm passionate about contributing and really sharing with you in this video. Now, internationally, there's a lot happening on reporting, and it's really starting that you're being asked to report on climate change, socially, and the governance that managers, directors, and staff, they want to know that it's credible. Climate change information is part of this, but it's part of a environmental, social, and governance. And actually banks want to have this information now. So there's mandatory for bigger organisations in different countries, but also people, if they want a loan, customers want to see it on websites, and if they're buying a product that is sustainable. So another good practice feature is actually, what does good look like for your organisation? Asking your stakeholders. What are your staff? What are your customers? What's important to them? And then what's changing? Your suppliers. What are the positive and negative impacts of your organisation on the environment and on people? What are you innovating in? What are the risks and opportunities? What are you doing next? Part of this approach is actually asking these questions and getting underway. Knowing what your customers, tribes, iwi in New Zealand, what are your suppliers doing? What are the community that your business is in? Your industry, management, and staff. And part of this then is, what is your organisational purpose? What are the values? And this is from Scotland, and I really like it that they're saying all businesses in Scotland will have become purposeful. Profiting, finding solutions for people and the planet. Going from a single enterprise to a country, to then internationally. And this is part of actually what are the values of your organisation and working with the Sustainable Development Goals. So part of this is actually having some data that's relevant to what you're doing. Sometimes we see a lot of data, but actually it's really hard to know what is being done and what's really important for the environment, socially, and oversight and financially within this organisation. And what data is relevant to show the difference it's making. This is what being credible really means. But to do that, you've actually got to know what your goal is of your organisation. What are you working towards? What are you doing? Now this approach and having a theory of change, what are the outcomes that you're working towards? Short term, longer term, and then being able to report against what you're doing for people, what you're doing for the environment, and the difference that you're making. But also what you're learning along the way. It doesn't need to be perfect. We're all on a learning journey here, and that you can show the difference that you're making. So this is called an impact model, sometimes an investment logic. And I really like to see all businesses, organisations, funds have an impact model, because then you can actually see what they're working towards and work out what's really important to measure and report on. So part of this is you've got your impact model. So you've actually developed an impact model and you've got that. Doesn't need to be too detailed, but then you've actually got some data and you're actually measuring some of these aspects on your impact model. You don't need to measure everything. And you might be with some of your suppliers, know how they're going, some indirect. But then you collect some data and record it. And then that you can actually report on it in a meaningful way and show the progress. I really like one-page reports, and then what you're learning, and then what you're thinking about doing next. So this is being able to go around the cycle from a model to measure to report, and then you can adapt it if you need to do things differently. Now, here's a story, and I want to share with you that Justine came on a course, and she was really keen to be able to tell her story, work out and know what's important for her business. She lives in the Kaikoura region in the South Island of New Zealand. She operates a gin distillery. She makes her product from botanicals, foraging for plants, distills that, and is really cautious about the water she uses, the energy, and where she puts her plant waste. And she wants to make sure that her soil and water are maintained, and that she's becoming, her goal is to be carbon neutral. And then socially, it was really important for her that she have tourists coming and that she educates the tourists about being environmentally sustainable, works with the community, and supports and shares her knowledge with tourists in the community. And then from a governance point of view, she's got some regulations to meet. She's health and safety, and that she's selling her product in markets in New Zealand and offshore. So this impact model is on one page and it highlights what she's doing from the environment and then what she's working towards, her outputs, and what changes in environmentally, social and governance. It took Justine a while to be able to work out what's really important to include on a model and then be able to know what to measure. And she had to really think about what her values were, guardianship for the environment, promoting sustainability, regenerative tourism. And this helped her get clear on what she's working towards and can share with her customers and her products. So this is called an impact model. And she developed this on one of our courses. And then next, she was able to report against it. So where she is now, okay, and she could actually say, this is what I'm doing, composting, this is my energy usage, and this is how many bottles, and where she gets her bottles from that are sustainably sourced, and this is how she's looking after the environment, and how many tourists she's taking, and working with the community, and that what she's doing in terms of looking after local environment projects, financially viable, that it's working towards, and she's selling her product. So on one page, she's actually be able to put relevant data, and her next report is going to be at Christmas, December, where she's got to from here. She found using her impact model really guided about what was important to report against and to be able to put this on a one-page report. Part of this was really thinking about the governance. What is really important to be able to plan and assess your progress? What data are you going to have? And this really goes to the heart of that, thinking this through, collecting your data, and that you've actually got credible data to support what you're saying and doing. And that you're not greenwashing, and that you've got data that supports from multiple sources what you're doing. I think this is an area we're starting to see a lot more coming through, that people are being prosecuted, organisations, they're being asked the hard questions. What data have you got to say about the progress that you're making? Or are you just making big comments and you don't have the data and the actions to support this? Now, part of this under the environmental space is actually knowing the carbon emissions under different scope. What is important for running a business, vehicles, facilities, and where does she get her electricity from, heating and cooling, use of water. And what's increasingly become important is knowing her scope 3 is what carbon is produced, CO2, other carbon, greenhouse gases, from her assets. Where does she go with the sold products? How is it done with processing? The fuel, the suppliers. Part of this now is actually, it's not enough now just to know your scope 1 and 2. You've actually got to say to your suppliers, what are your carbon emissions? Because we need to include this as part of our carbon footprint. And this is what banks are asking for, because they need to report, and that's mandatory, becoming mandatory on what their carbon emissions are and what their customers are. And same in export markets. So increasingly we're having to know what are the key things to measure and to know what you're doing, and what are you doing to reduce this. And Justine's goal was actually getting to carbon zero, which means that she's reducing her greenhouse gases and that she's really minimising the impact on the environment. Another company in New Zealand, the Kia Sisters, they've used the sustainability goals, development goals, and they've really looked at what are they doing for their purchase, you know, what is their carbon footprint for purchasing the goods and services, what are they doing with the end-of-life products, where do they dispose them, do they go into the landfill, and how can they reduce and really bring down their carbon footprint. One of the ways that they've done this is by going to solar energy panels and having a renewable power provider. So you can actually see the difference, and it's credible. They've got the numbers to support when they're saying they are a sustainably focused organisation. Now, another one example is, this is actually how Unilever have integrated their goals for climate change, for the planet, and for people. And they've got climate action here, they've got regenerating nature, looking at nutrition, about healthy eating, health and well-being, and looking at how their staff and the future of work. What they've done really well is they have set goals and targets, but what they've been asked recently is, what does this mean in terms of different products and countries, that they need to break this down so you can see whether some of their products are meeting their targets and some of the countries. So this is taking more effort, and some of the questions are being really asked, are they making a difference in all countries and all products, and how do they know that? Now, one of the ways to actually look at your reporting is to then go back against the Sustainable Development Goals and actually show the difference that you're making. Doesn't need to be for all of them, but you might be looking at gender, looking at what are you doing to really enhance the difference for different genders in your workplace. What are you doing about education? What are you doing about a clean energy? And actually then saying, well, our organisation is contributing in these ways, and we're on this pathway. This is what we're meaning by having integrity, and there is evidence to show that your organisation is making a difference under these goals. This is another organisation in Europe, and this is their annual report, and it's included their sustainability reporting within that. And I really like the fact that they've broken this down under environment, their social responsibility and governance. And then they've included their data that supports it. So it's clear about what they're working towards, and products, circular economy, and then they've actually had it verified. So we know that what they've put, that an external has looked at their data and what they've said they're working towards, that it's been verified. But you don't need to do that straight away. what I suggest to people is just getting started on a few key areas that are important in the environment and in socially in your organisation. And what's been asked increasingly by banks is who oversees the sustainability, the integrity of this within your organisation, because it's a board, it's a governance, it's a management, and it's staff. And how does that work? So, just standing back a bit now, and there's been quite a bit that I've brought up in this video, but I wanted to highlight like what I see and what we see in a strategy and evaluation and sustainability credible space. So knowing where you are now, asking your stakeholders, aligning your values. What do your community want? Indigenous views, perspectives. Using, and I really like this, using environment, social and the governance dimensions to actually not just report, but to evolve your transformative. What changes in action? And what progress and impacts are you making? Having a credible change in action, the line of sight, your theories of change that you're working towards, that you've got governance, and that you're planning and measuring and reporting for impact and resilience, risks, opportunities, and that you're integrating your strategy goals for climate change. And this is why I really can't emphasize enough how useful having environment, social and governance. It helps you look at things systematically, but not be overwhelmed by everything all at once. Just a few in each area. And then how does it work together? And being able to report on that. So, where are you now in your organisation? How are you measuring sustainability and ESG, your progress and impacts? And part of this video, and what I've really been working towards, is to increase people and organisations' knowledge and capability in this. So you can be proactive and actually look at your values, look at what sustainable means, look at the different dimensions and what your stakeholders, and how can you make a contribution in your risks, and really emphasising about being proactive and looking at it 6 monthly. A year's a long time to then look at it another year. Can you make changes and adapt as you go? So part of what we've been doing, and I'm really passionate about this, is we've developed a course and been running this this year in 2022, and it's called Measuring Your Sustainability Progress and Impacts Credibly. And it's a course, it's online, and it's got coaching support. So over 3 months, you go through as a group with live webinars, having stages. So phase 1 is about how do you plan under looking at sustainability. How do you action and measure? How do you assess and report and adapt? And the course is really about you gaining knowledge, but actually practically doing this for your organisation. And one of the areas that I really like in Module 4 is that each person on the course for their organisation, they get to share their impact model that they've developed and tell the story about the progress and the impacts that they're making using data. So it's a course that gets you doing and evolving and using the skills and tools. So to do that, what we've done is I've put together like a workbook, and you get different 8 templates as you go through the course, and you can download from the online platform that you can make your impact model. You can ask stakeholders questions. You can record the data. You can talk about what does good look like, and then have a one-page report. So you've then got a chain of evidence that you can use, and you've got the skills and the templates to use this on your organisation, other projects and other funds. And what's really exciting, I think, is that you can see people's development. It doesn't need to be too complicated, just 5 things: knowing how you're going and reporting. So we've got a course coming up starting on the 2nd of November, and that's 4 weeks with your modules, and then you've got 2 months, a bit of coaching and support to actually really go back over and use what you've learnt and share with your colleagues. It starts on the 2nd of November. You can register on our website, www.isd.nz, and from the course you then can become part of the ISD community, the inclusive sustainable development community, and there's some ongoing coaching and support if you need it. So to register on the course, you can go straight to our website. Here's the link, and book a place on the course. And if you've got some questions, please email me, and really happy to answer those. Can arrange a telephone call, a Zoom call, but we're really keen to have a good cohort that you start on this journey pathway or evolve your pathway together. So thinking globally, acting locally, and he waka eke noa, we're all in this together. So please go and click on the link, make contact, and we'd really ask that, we'd love you to join us on the next course. Thank you for watching to the end of this video, and really appreciate the support and interest, and want to grow and really make a difference to you and to your organisation.